Xeno fans have been pretty busy with the new game release these past few weeks, but just days before Xenoblade X DE came out, a major bombshell was dropped. Xenosaga Pied Piper, previously a piece of Xeno series lost media, had officially been found and recovered. And it's all thanks to a couple of folks in the community named Vector Translations and a group of dedicated media preservationists from the Keitai Wiki.
Wate technically, and I self-proclaimed preservationist. I'm pretty sure me and Mr. Xeno Collector have always been into preserving Xeno items in general, but I sort of went out last couple years ago, so I'm pretty sure I'm number one unless there's somebody out there that hasn't said anything yet.
Hello, my name is Valak Turtle, and I've had the honor of announcing the preservation of Xenosaga Pied Piper to the entire Xeno community. I had been in contact with the wonderful people at the Keitai Wiki Discord server for 9 months in the lead up to Pied Piper getting dumped and preserved.
Personally, I go by the username LNRC, but my posts are under the username Unabandonware, and I've been involved in mostly coordinating between people who had the ability to be able to dump the data from feature phones, and then the people who are able to extract that data from the feature phones. I created the Keitai Wiki.
Okay.
I did that almost 2 years ago now.
I actually didn't know that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
If you're not familiar with Xenosaga or Xeno games in general, then you may not realize what a monumental discovery this is. It's possible that some fans aren't even aware that there was Xeno series lost media in the first place. To be quite honest, I didn't before I played through Xenosaga a few years back. To better explain, let's rewind the clock a bit. It's June 2004, and Xenosaga Episode 2 has just been released in Japan. Players make it to the end of the game and encounter the Black Testament Voyager for the first time. We've seen him extremely briefly, only during quick flashbacks involving the character Ziggurat 8, a reanimated cyborg. But this is the first proper introduction we get to him. Ziggurat, his friends call him Ziggy, is clearly furious at the man for some sort of tragedy in his life 100 years prior. At this moment, gamers have no clue how these two came to know each other, but for a select few, they wouldn't have to wait long. About a month later, the spin-off game Xenosaga Pied Piper released exclusively in Japan. It tells the story of how Ziggurat became a reanimated cyborg, taking place during his lifetime as the Federation police officer Jan Sauer. A mysterious man named Voyager is assassinating people in virtual reality, and it's up to Jan and his team to get to the bottom of it. All things considered, the narrative is actually pretty good. The story takes a number of twists and turns, while also managing to tie directly into the greater Xenosaga lore.
Despite just seeming like a mobile spin-off, Pied Piper was originally intended to be part of Episode 2 itself.
It makes the universe so much richer, and you get a greater understanding of Ziggy's past and who he is and his placement in the universe. And it's probably like maybe 6 to 8 hours of gameplay. Nothing too huge, but definitely lore huge.
Without properly experiencing Pied Piper, so many parts of the story remained vague and incomplete for the vast majority of people experiencing the series.
The combat is a modified version of Xenosaga 1's battle system, so it's not wholly unfamiliar to veterans of the franchise either. The game was broken up into 6 chapters, each one releasing individually for download every couple of weeks. Almost like a weekly TV show, there would be all this mystery surrounding what would happen next, until inevitably the following bite-sized part was released. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, here's the issue. Not only was this game essentially region-locked, but it was exclusive to cellular devices and could only be acquired if you had one of a few particular cell subscriptions to go along with it. This generation of phones, called feature phones, was pretty popular in Japan at the time, just like everywhere else. Before iPhones, Androids, and Pixels, this is what we used. This itty-bitty thing. And like many handheld devices created in a post-Game Boy world, there were games made for it.
These phones are basically the first experiments in having digital games that ran off of servers. Before these phones, you had consoles with cartridges, you had the cartridge version, you had the release, it wouldn't update. There was some stuff like the Satellaview where you could download files or Sega Channel. But on these phones, that's really where it was happening on a large scale. And a lot of the things that were done in these feature phones were adopted by Apple and the iPhone. And so there is a very direct correlation. Things like emojis came from these phones. Even the term apply probably came from these phones, or application, app, how we usually say in English, just app.
Try and imagine what the cross-section of people that would experience this game was. Japanese Xenosaga fans that also owned a cell phone and had a cell plan that carried the game. Not too many. For English-speaking gamers or anyone else unable to play the game, they included an area in Xenosaga 3 that explained many of the events that took place during the story. A wonderful but defunct fan project by KOS-MOS dumped the script online and translated it too, which was fantastic. I read this document myself when playing through the series, but it's still not the same as experiencing the game itself. The question you may be asking now is, why not just get a phone and dump the game files onto a computer for preservation? It's actually a lot more complicated than that.
That's like really, really unlikely, right? Because the only other way you could have done that is had an actual cell phone service in Japan and downloaded it.
Keitai preservation is a relatively new field of game preservation, so the knowledge of how to software dump games off these phones is something that very few people know how to do.
Back then, we didn't have technology to back up these types of games. There was no real way to preserve them, and some of them were subscription only. Some of them you would have to download from the live service, and it would only load in chunks. Like Final Fantasy Before Crisis would only load like side load. Well, I don't know if side load's the right term, but it would basically load a chunk of data, push out that data, load another chunk. Like, I think people don't realize that back then, right? Like, why back it up? Everybody thought it was like you buy it or you don't. Like, people didn't think of digital preservation in the sense of what they do today. It being not prevalent, people were like, well, we don't need to do that. You know, like there wasn't a place to store it anyway, technology and everything. So, or even to take it off of the phone and emulate it. None of that stuff was like an option. So you either have a physical phone or you don't.
We have a pretty small team of people who are looking at these phone dumps. There are just hundreds and thousands of games. It usually happens in spurts. So what'll happen is there are a few of us who go and we get large auction lots of phones. We get the auction lots because it's less likely for the phone data to be wiped. It's more likely to find games on it. So sometimes I have bought individual phones and the data wasn't wiped either. We found some cool stuff. Mostly, the unwiped phones are in the lots. In addition, the people who are looking through these phones, most of them are not in Japan. So it's more economical to purchase a large lot and ship it all at once overseas. So when a person gets a lot, they'll go through like a bunch of the phones. The ones we can exploit, we'll just dump a bunch of them at once. So there'll just be a huge influx. And then there will be a lot of silence. And the phones that we have games for that haven't been exploited yet, we keep to the side. And if an exploit is figured out, then we bring them back and we extract the data that way. So actually, when we figured out how to extract the data on the phone that had Pied Piper, we were able to go back to a bunch of phones we had with other data, and we extracted those all at once. And so it's really in bursts.
In 2009, the service providing the game went down, and along with it, Xenosaga Pied Piper. So, if you did not have a phone with this game on it, that was it. From that point forward, phones with Pied Piper were an endangered species. Only so many of them existed, and most people didn't feel the need or want to preserve the content on their obsolete cellular device. This isn't an issue specific to this game either. Many titles, hundreds, were completely lost due to these services shutting down. Games like .hack, Ys, Spider-Man 2 Pinball, Sonic Golf 3D, Professor Layton and the Pocky Mystery, Bomberman RPG. All of these games are currently considered lost media. You just cannot play them. And unfortunately, that's how it goes for many of them. Thankfully, the Keitai Wiki has made it their mission to find and recover as many of these games as possible.
In the beginning, I was writing so many articles that I actually was giving myself back pain because I got so fixated and I wasn't moving around. There were just hundreds and thousands of games. When I first learned about these games, the one that really took my interest the most was Tetris DJ, which is a combination Tetris rhythm game. And amazingly, I actually found that pretty early on, mostly by accident, by just taking a phone, plugging it in, and seeing if it reacted to the debug cable. It did. I tried to exploit it, and then it happened to have that game. Many people who come in with the desire to find a single game are often disappointed. The chances of finding any individual game are really, really low.
In addition, Gmode Corporation, a Japanese mobile game company, has also gained notoriety for pulling many of these games out of the gutter by legal means and releasing them on modern hardware, particularly Steam and Nintendo Switch. I first heard about them when they ported over the Megami Tensei Gaiden Last Bible New Testament trilogy in 2022. A small side note, I actually haven't played any of the Last Bible games, but the music from this series is really, really good, especially from Last Bible 3. The OST alone may have convinced me to give them a try someday. Anyway, as you can tell, there have been clear efforts to restore these games. Unfortunately, Pied Piper's recovery took much longer than one would expect, especially considering the peculiar situation it found itself in. For a very long time, we had known that there was a phone which had a complete copy of Pied Piper on it. In fact, the owner of the phone actually posted a complete playthrough of the entire game to YouTube. However, this person would not dump the files online nor loan the phone out to anyone. Of course, they were scared that such a rare and coveted item wouldn't make it back to them, but their main concern, understandably, was a legal one. Japan has extremely strict piracy laws. You could be in prison for up to 10 years for illegally sharing digital files.
It's a pretty big legal risk if you're in Japan to be working with ROMs. It's not illegal there, just straight up. And some other places, it can fall into more of a gray territory, but in Japan, it's more risky. Secondly, there's a sense that distributing games that haven't been purchased is stealing. And that perhaps these games might be re-released one day, and if the ROM is out before the game is re-released, then that's preventing the publisher from gaining profits. A lot of these Japanese companies actually do keep their software and old games. They have a lot of backups. A lot of them don't necessarily have them super organized. So it's possible a lot of those games still exist in the backlog. So that's one thing.
A decade in prison was not the price they were willing to pay for the illegal upload of an obscure phone game. And I don't blame them. So for almost 20 years, Pied Piper sat in this weird limbo. Not completely lost, but barely out of reach from the wider community. We had hoped and prayed for someone to find this game. Maybe even Gmode would re-release it and bypass this process entirely. And then eventually, it happened. One day in the summer of 2025, an anonymous benefactor offered to send the data from their phone to the Keitai Wiki for preservation. And sure enough, a copy of Pied Piper with all 6 parts was found on the device. It was a 1,000,000 to 1 chance, but against all odds, the entirety of Pied Piper was recovered.
Like many other people in the community, I've spent countless years searching for this game. There's been many nights of digging through every scrap of information I can find, especially about the models of phones it was even compatible with. There was a lot of effort put into this, but no true progress was made until a Did You Know gaming video popped up back in September about Keitai preservation. That video was a fantastic watch, giving a ton of info about how Keitai preservation is even possible, as well as introducing me to the Keitai Wiki and the Keitai Wiki Discord. I immediately joined after watching it and let them know that I would make a translation patch of Pied Piper should the day ever come that it gets preserved. About a week later, discussion of Pied Piper came up again where Memory Hunter revealed that they actually did have contact with someone who was willing to dump the game. Once news of this phone's existence made it to the Vector Translations team, I immediately got in contact with them and expressed interest in helping in any way I can to get it dumped.
This process came out of the blue for a lot of people, and it's like, to me, I've been dealing with it for years, like searching. So it's like everything sort of mushes together. The hardest part was we got stuck on dumping it.
The process of figuring out the exploit took a number of months. So it was months where some more things were getting done more than other things.
The main obstacle at that point was the phone that the game was on, an SH903 ITV, pronounced Sharp 903 ITV, was one of the models that couldn't be software dumped yet. Extracting data from these devices isn't as simple as connecting them to a computer. The process depends on advanced software exploits that bypass the phone's built-in security. We couldn't use this process on the phone that had the game, since there was a considerable risk in hardware dumping that could have resulted in the phone being permanently damaged. The only lead we had for many months was to reverse engineer a specific firmware file, which was an absolute nightmare since it was written in Symbian OS, a very niche language written specifically for these phones. We ended up getting around that by hardware dumping other phones with G1 Spanian chips to better understand how their hardware and firmware worked. This effort was worked on by LNRC and Cubis, the latter of whom developed custom PCB adapters to hardware dump the chips.
Cubos has been very good at this. I think he's managed to save every single chip he's taken off of a PCB so far. Gonna cross our fingers and hope that keeps going. And a lot of these chips actually, there isn't documentation available because they were made proprietary. And the documentation on proprietary chips is kept private. Basically, what's involved is looking for the similar chips, trying to figure out the general gist of how the chip works, making a lot of guesses, and then seeing if you can dump it. And so after all of that, we were able to get the firmware off of the phone.
Valak and Watt are actually working on a documentary about the months of work that they and the Keitai Wiki put in to get this thing working. It'll be going into way more detail than I do here, so when it's done, I'll have it linked in the video description. But if it isn't yet, I'll just direct you to subscribe to this channel here, so you'll be notified when it releases. Before we go, do you guys want to say anything to the lovely people at home?
I think Vector Translations is a very passionate group. We have a lot of projects. We came together because we all wanted to lessen that workload. I think we get a lot of passionate people who care about things. Things can happen and doors can open. And I don't think, while I myself have preserved a lot of stuff and spent many years preserving stuff, and that's what I'm known for, I don't think I could have gotten this far without, there's a lot of people involved that, to me, make this experience so much better, because not only do we all care about it, we couldn't have done it alone. There was no way, had I not met Valak, there was no way we would have been doing all this stuff.
I'm mostly here because I enjoy the process and I enjoy the new things that come every day and the new people from different fandoms who come over and are very excited when we find something related to their fandom, such as the Xenosaga fandom. Anyone who's curious about any of these games, come over to Keitai Wiki. We are a very friendly community of people. It's a great place to just hang out online. Lots of people like to hang out in the off-topic channel. We're making new and interesting discoveries every day. A lot of people feel nervous about trying to contribute because they think that, oh, I don't have a lot of technical knowledge to really do much in terms of debugging these phones. But there is still a lot that needs to be done in simply gathering information and writing pages. Almost every page on the wiki is a stub. Even one person can make a huge difference. And that could be you.
I would like to acknowledge the key people in the Keitai Wiki server who made this recovery possible. Memory Hunter was our crucial contact with our anonymous donor who had the phone. He not only tipped us off about the game's existence on the device, but also played an active role in discussions as we prepared to dump it. There's also LNRC, who was our main contact and constantly kept us informed about even the tiniest bits of progress. Cubis also played a major role in dumping phones, using his custom PCB adapters to safely get the data off the phones. And most importantly, XYZ served as the project's lead reverse engineer. Out of everyone in the entire preservation project, there is no one else like him when it comes to understanding the hardware, software, and firmware of these phones. Without XYZ's deep knowledge of systems like Symbian OS and the internal architectures of phones like the SH903 ITB, it's very likely the recovery would have never been possible at all. I'd also like to give a sincere thank you to the entire Keitai Wiki Discord community. The amount of time, effort, and passion poured into preserving every single game is nothing short of a miracle. While also not directly part of the Keitai Wiki Discord, I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to the anonymous donor who generously provided their copy of the game.
What's next for Pied Piper? Well, as it stands, there isn't actually a translation within the game itself yet. So over at Vector Translations, the group that Valak, Watt, and I are a part of, they're currently working on an English patch. Watt has also pulled the soundtrack off of the game, and it's available to listen to over on his channel. Some of what you've been hearing in this video comes from his rips. Not only that, but a faithful recreation of the game made by Cyclone Fox just released on April 18th. Now it'll be even more faithful since there's now physical access to the original. Previously, we were missing dialogue from a few NPCs, but no longer. The visuals were completely overhauled and the OST remade by Wow Bob Wow Music. It's an incredible project and I highly recommend that you guys check it out. Thank you to everyone who made this possible. Thank you to the folks over at the Keitai Wiki for creating a space that allows for things like this to happen. Thank you to Watt and Valak for never giving up and keeping at it, even when the odds were stacked against us. Thank you to Shifted Pyro for providing the voice for Valak's interview. And thank you to all of you. It's the passion and drive from the Xeno community that really led to this happening. Last, but certainly not least, I'd like to thank my channel members to Play and Polygloom, my Legendary Blade members, Afloat Sign, my Rare Blade member, and Jim Jam, my Common Blade member. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!